Good tidings to you. Whenever this reaches you, we are in the energy of the new moon in Gemini, which is what brought me to doing this reading this evening. I know I've been sort of MIA a little bit, well, since the full moon eclipse. And it made sense to wait until we reach the new moon energy because, of course, now we're setting our intentions now that we've worked through and released what has held us back. And in those last couple of weeks, you may have felt a considerable potency of that blood moon eclipse energy. Very scorpionic, very much about releasing what's preventing us from moving towards our North Node, our destiny fulfillment. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. In my life, I can give you a very tangible trajectory, should you not know what's been taking place in my life. I found myself at a really weird crossroads where I was basically offered two jobs and they were kind of competing for me to commit with money. And one of them was relatively local and the other in another state altogether, Texas. And I was very focused on Taurian values. I have a Taurus rising, so it's not hard for me to fall into Taurian anchoring, which I believe probably my last incarnation was very much driven around wealth and some trauma attached to it, because in this life I have found myself consistently facing challenges around what I value and how I hold on to things and how I lose things and how eventually we have to come into that higher octane, higher resonance of Scorpio, Taurus's opposite, which is all about letting go and surrendering to the essence of life and the life-death cycle, right? And also the subsequent transcendence. So, of course, what did I do? I followed like something that seemed full of promise based upon probably an aspect of privilege and access, and I did temporarily relocate to Houston, Texas, and I mean, when I say temporarily, I mean I literally lasted 4 days. The people I was working for were batshit crazy. What a surprise. All of the devil energies there. Sex, drugs, spoiled, low frequency manifestations on so many levels, and then a plethora of lost, codependent, broken people keeping it all together, all the hangers on, and it's just tragic in so many ways, but also in perfect alignment with what that eclipse was all about. And that is facing those shortcomings within myself, understanding where I become stuck and where I can be blindsided, and how far I have personally evolved beyond those codependent limitations where I would submit in that way. Now, I'm not pretending that I've overcome that entirely, because now I have another potential professional pursuit that I am going to hopefully solidify, but it will be another challenge of all of those values. I have a strong feeling that it will resonate much better with me, and that the frequency of the opportunity is much more in alignment with my higher purpose. But right now, I'm full of doubt. And I'm working through that, and as I become closer and closer, as we approach this new moon energy, which when I record this will be in approximately 5 hours from when I am recording this, but the energy is really for the upcoming 2 weeks and beyond, because it's amplified by that eclipse energy, because this is thrusting us forward into new dynamics and new possibilities, and based upon all of the things that we've let go of. And now it's time to set our intentions for what we want to bring in. And it doesn't matter if you're watching this a day after, 3 days after, or a week after, or 2 weeks after. You still can set your intentions whenever. The energy is still there for you to tap into. I'd say 2 weeks is probably the limit of really tangibly doing that, but it doesn't really matter, because subconsciously we're always setting new intentions for ourselves, and we kind of know it energetically. I mean, let's remember that our bodies are made of a very high percentage of water, which is controlled by the lunar movements, and subsequently our intuition, which we're all tapped into, right, because we're not spending all of our time reading tarot cards and talking about astrology just for shits and giggles. We kind of subconsciously know how to set our intentions, and when we need to let go of something and when we need to invite something in. So hopefully you'll see that pattern within yourself and start figuring out new ways of integrating that. And if you do ceremonies for yourself, that's amazing, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be a deep intellectual exercise either. It can be purely intuitive and rhythmic, and sometimes these things just come to us when we are in a moment of meditation. So, that said, this week, or this reading, I have a couple of new things that I added, because I actually did get to new decks. One was a Star Code Astro Oracle deck, which we'll see how that integrates, pulling a card from that and what that gives us as insight into the energy of this new moon in Gemini. I pulled a Spirit Animal Oracle card, I pulled a Soul's Journey Lesson card, and I pulled one, well, I didn't pull one because multiple cards came out, but I pulled what turned out to be 3 Osho Zen Tarot cards that came out together, so they'll have a strong message for us. And then I just did a 6-card spread with a general energy and some clarifiers that came out automatically for our tarot reading, which will be with the Tarot of Oppositions, which is something new that I acquired. As you know, the depictions basically have the reversal image mirrored beneath the upright image. So what I like about that is not because I don't read reversals, but what I figured might be interesting for us is that we get to see the archetype and its opposite. In other words, we start to understand that so much of what our experiences of life ends up actually being a result of how we perceive things. So let's see how that comes about. I need to have a sip of tea from my giant mug, because in flying back from Houston via Denver and following a week where I wasn't getting very much sleep and was in high adrenaline mode, and I was self-medicating, my body failed me a little bit, and subsequently my immune system has been compromised, and who knows, I could be on COVID round 3 for all I know at this point, but I haven't been extremely energetic or feeling great, and I've had a little bit of upper respiratory and congestion and irritation, so who knows at this point what's going on. Maybe I have monkeypox, or maybe I have hepatitis A, because I was just reading today that apparently the strawberries that I buy could have given me hepatitis A. We live in a really interesting world, right? Where inflation is so high that, I don't know, I'm almost like it feels like a game when I go anywhere. I'm just like, I was just telling my sister like this morning that I'd gone for frozen yogurt with a friend of mine when I flew back from Houston that night, and I mean, we had like small containers like this big of 2 types of frozen yogurt with some berries on top and maybe some chocolate chips. And, you know, you weigh them. I mean, this was not a large amount of anything. And it was like $13 almost. And I'm just like, what? This is so crazy. But anyway, that's the world we live in, right? We're all hyper aware of that and kind of figuring out how on earth we're going to adapt to these things. So let's not talk about money, right? Because it's just a energy as well, really, that frames our experience. So I guess if I could afford to pay $12 for frozen yogurt, I can hardly complain, right? I get it. Okay, let's start with our Spirit Animal Oracle card. I knew that this card was going to come out when I was shuffling it. I mean, it makes perfect sense for a new moon reading, but a particularly potent one. And it is a potent new moon, so really think about that. This is a brand new cycle of energy that is really pivotal in terms of how our destiny unravels, you know, our true pathway unravels. Maybe in terms of the types of interactions that we have with other people, finding ourselves in the position where we feel very supported by the people that are in our lives after probably being in a long period of time where we felt very unsupported and very alienated. That's going to start shifting in this, so I suggest that you stay open to that, to newness, and also not just newness of new people or whatever, but newness in the sense that there may be new dynamics within your relationships with people that allow you to feel more elevated and supported, and of course that's a synergistic flow energy, because then that in turn shifts the way that you experience life too. I'm going to read that thread, but first of all I realized that I didn't light a candle, and I feel like we need to do it. Oh, shit. Don't laugh at the weird face I just pulled. It's very quiet, so I'm feeling very relaxed. But anyway, we'll just put that off to the side there. Otherwise, well, maybe it isn't so distracting just to have a little flickering candle in there for you. Okay, let's take in. It's not great for my complexion, is it? Whatever. The oracle message of Bat Spirit: a rebirth is assured. After something has run its course and died, or been released, finished, surrendered, completed, or ended, there is a promise of a new beginning. Rebirth is assured just as night gives way to dawn and the bat emerges from the darkness of a womb-like cave. Bat Spirit has come to remind you that this rebirth is a miraculous one, for the very best elements of what you had to give up in the death of the old are still present in this new, amazing life forming now. And that is something I want to point out. Not only do we have this lunar shift with the new moon in Gemini. Obviously, we're also moving into stronger and stronger Gemini energies as we're coming up to the second decan in this energy ahead, which will be about, after doing a lot of inner self-discovery, now we're moving into curiosity about the world around us and how it interacts with us and how it supports us and how it illuminates and inspires and drives us. So all of this kind of ties in, right? And then further to that, let's not forget too, the Mercury, currently retrograde, goes direct during this coming week too, I believe on the 4th of June, 3rd or 4th, depending on where you are. And that also ties in with the idea that how we express ourselves in the outside world, where we might have felt that we were kind of in a cocoon, but suddenly there will be a lot more flow. And think about the things that have kind of maybe been held up for whatever reason, because of things with health or things with it could be monetary, it could be all kinds of things that are rooted in what we use to express life, to sustain ourselves. That this, we might find, well, we will find that there's a shift in allowing us to move beyond our restrictions with that. So that's on the horizon. Of course, coinciding with that, we also have Saturn going retrograde. Now, these outer planets, when they go retrograde, we don't have to look at it as being a negative. In many ways, it really is just an opportunity to slow down and appreciate and understand and better integrate what Saturn has been bringing to the table of late. And Saturn has been in Aquarius, so that has been very much about how we establish ourselves through authority, rules, and our place, our hierarchical place, if you want to call it that. I don't wish to reinforce hierarchical thinking, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. How we integrate into the collective. Even in terms of our altruism or our benevolence in general, this is a big part of that. So wherever we're at right now with that right now, or we have been, in terms of how we feel about other people, how we've been interacting with other people, this is now, in many ways, we slow down in that energy, and we have the opportunity to better explore perhaps processes that were moving too fast for us to properly integrate them in that particular way. And I'm not great on explaining Saturn. Of course, we know that Saturn is also Chronos, so it's also about time. So in many ways, it can also shift into, perhaps you've been feeling since the beginning of this year that the time has really accelerated and we've been moving forward very, very quickly. I mean, I look back on my life over the course of 5 months and I can honestly say that so much has happened and it feels like an eternity. But at the same time, it's a relatively short period of time, 5 months, right? So now maybe we get to settle more into what's coming up into our lives so that we can properly integrate those processes and those experiences and those feelings, and build new sort of Four of Wands energy, new foundations, pillars of support for ourselves in our lives. Usually we have to slow down a little bit to actually do that, I mean, there's only so much letting go of you can do, and eventually then you have to sort of reestablish yourself on the clean foundations that you've given yourself after the Towers and the, Eight of Swords and the, all the angst, the anxiety, the burdens, the, you know, all that fun stuff. Anyway, I digress. This is the miracle and magic of rebirth in every aspect of your life, including the rebirth of faith in your ability to establish new and healthy relationships. Interesting that relationships come up, because that is very much a part of the dynamism of this Gemini season, not just because of Gemini, but because of other major astrological influences. Bat Spirit reminds you that at present you are in unknown territory and may feel as if you are lost. However, you are called to trust that your intuition will be a reliable guide as you give birth to something new and unfamiliar. Bat Spirit has listened in the darkness of night and has heard all your hopes and dreams, your fears and worries, and assures you that this new version of your dream, this move from darkness into light, from lost to found and death to rebirth, comes to fruition with love at its core. Bat Spirit asks you to trust that what seems to have died is actually shape-shifting into something even more meaningful and wondrous than before. If you feel you're in the dark, know that come morning, all will be revealed and things will be in a new form that is right for you. And we will read the protection message, because as we're coming out of retrograde energy, it's possible that we've been stuck in some way in our process, so let's see what we can get from that. What's holding back our rebirth if we are in that position. What are you refusing to let die? Bat Spirit is gently nudging you to let go of your need to cling to the familiar story that has already run its course. A new story is poised to be born. Some dreams were only meant to last for a moment in time. Sometimes they were only there to slow you down as you recalibrated in preparation for a new life that will give you what you really want. Perhaps you need to, and you will notice I made a very weird emphasis on time in there. That's really not how I should have read it, but I do think that was just kind of a guide into the focus of Chronos and Saturn and time, because maybe that really is where it comes from. You know, we're also dealing with a lot of Neptunian energy right now, so that is really about what is a dream state and what is reality to us, and how do we define our dream into reality. And Saturn can be very heavy in preventing Neptunian energy from solidifying. So here we have an opportunity to, as Saturn slows down, to harness that Neptunian energy and maybe even figure out ways to manifest what we dream of achieving and experiencing, right? Perhaps you need to grieve as you say goodbye to something. At least you're saying goodbye to its familiar form. Perhaps you must let go of a part of you that must die so that you can be reborn. This temporary time in the dark doesn't have to be scary or sad, though. Bat Spirit gives you her powers of perception and awareness as you learn to listen deeply and navigate these unknown caves of temporary emptiness. You will emerge with a new perspective, and Bat Spirit will witness your giving birth to the life that matches the intentions and desires of your heart and soul. I feel like this candle's going crazy. Are you okay, candle? Okay. What do we have from our soul's journey lesson card? Of course, as we spoke of in the very beginning of this reading, doubt. I release the need to know all the answers. It's an interesting symbol on there, isn't it? It's impossible for the human brain to comprehend the mysteries of the universe. You are only consciously aware of the 3 dimensions for a reason, and that is to learn to love without the full awareness of your connection to spirit. Everyone has his or her own personal path to this awareness, and there is no right or wrong answer as long as your goal is to manifest the energy of love and compassion. The wisdom of the divine trickles into the physical dimension, and some of it will resonate with your soul and some will not. These are your signposts that guide you to your correct path. It is the wisdom, if the wisdom resonates with you and seems right, then keep it. If not, release it back to the universe. Always be aware and mindful of the insights that your spirit guides and teachers put on your path. And it is about being receptive, right? And, receptive to what we might sometimes dismiss in our cynicism as coincidence. Or, I had a lot of that in the last 10 days, just of course, the repeat numbers, that was happening a lot. It's continuing to happen. But people showing up in random places with repeat events that sort of made, they were just too flagrant to be dismissed, I was with a friend shopping for some clothes to take with me down to Texas, and about a year ago we'd been in the position where we had been shopping together at a different mall, and at that time, my friend is always making fun of me and tries to sexualize my rapport with every single person and that we encounter, whether it be the garbage man or I don't know, just anybody. Anyway, a former colleague of mine who at the time was an actual colleague, but I bumped into, and my friend was insisting that I was had a secret crush on this person, which was completely ridiculous. But ever since then, as my friend tends to do, he will consistently say whenever we go anywhere, he's like, "Oh, are you gonna how's your little crush from work?" Or, whatever it may be. He insists that I lie in my bed, naked with the blinds open, waiting for somebody to walk by the back alley. It's of course, completely nonsensical. But it makes me laugh, and it is funny and ridiculous. Anyway, we were in this mall last Sunday, the Beverly Center, which is a hideous indoor mall here in West Hollywood, and he's like, "Oh, is your friend that we bumped into from a year ago that you have a secret affair with and crush on," or whatever he was saying, "gonna show up if you organize that and whatever?" And I'm just like, "Of course not, you so stupid," whatever, I literally turn around and guess who is right there in the shoe department? This person who comes up and does the same thing that they did exactly a year ago. And it really felt like a complete, it's the most mundane story, I understand. I'm not but it's pretty weird, right? That's when, at least when you have moments like that, you get this sense that it's almost like a giant wink from the universe, right? That's how I take it anyway. Trust the process is usually what I take away from that. Okay, let's read our first Star Code Astro Oracle card. Transits, climate, number 55. I'm not familiar with this deck really yet. I think I pulled one card from it when I bought it, and so let's just see how the message flows. That light is it's very beautiful, but honestly, not on my face. I really am a little drained, so I apologize if I look like a ghoul. The planets are always moving through time and space, always spinning around us. When those planets form geometric relationships to one another, they create transits, the astrological weather conditions of the day that affect us all. When a moving planet forms a geometric relationship to a planet in your natal chart, that transiting planet can act like a guest who enters your house, sits in your kitchen or sprawls in your living room, it activates that part of your existence. If that transiting planet talks to your Mars, it activates your warrior nature and your fight or flight response. If it talks to your moon, it initiates a story centered around your home, your family, and how you nurture yourself. So we're getting a little astrology lesson in these cards, so that could be a nice little addition to our get-togethers, right? Anyway, this particular card comes with an action, a challenge, and a gift, as all the cards do in this deck. So let's focus in this particular instance on what those are. The action of this card is the situation we're currently in is in flux and the surrounding conditions are changing. Stay alert, aware, and be ready to respond to incoming opportunities or dangers. Some people are moving in, others are leaving. New opportunities open and old chapters close. Listen to the grapevine for changes in personnel or economic conditions. You are not in control of these elements, but you can make the most of these changes and dance with fate. People that walk into your life now may be karmically important. Either the relationship will last a long time, or it may be a short, pithy, and teach you a valuable lesson. It may be short, I meant to say, not a short. It can be helpful at this point to look at the transits in your natal chart. There is no volume control on this card's energy. Transits may trigger a small change in the personnel around you, or it could signal a shooting star that blazes across your life and turns your direction entirely. You have choices, though. Ask for grace and guidance when responding to all the changing circumstances. And as this is a new moon, and as we got the rebirth card in Bat Spirit, and the need to release doubt, all of this is tying together, right? The challenge would be that wild cards are in play, and as you're not in control of who or what now brushes your life, that can be scary. The gift, however, is that even though life is an ever-moving circus and you do not control the people and events transiting your life, know that you are in complete control of your response to the transit. Choose wisely. Always a wise reminder, right? Anyway, those are interesting cards. I'm sure we'll familiarize ourselves with those as we move forward. Let's get into our tarot, and we'll finish with the Osho Zen cards because they usually give a broader picture. Our underlying energy for this new moon in Gemini, we have the High Priestess, and she is in this card sitting on a new moon. Tap into that spiritual nature. Maybe that's also a big part of it. I can certainly say that. Having just gone through a very destabilizing little chapter of my life, where I was sort of very open to being imbued by things that were coming my way, but I wasn't necessarily in control of. That meant that there was room to fill the void with things that weren't necessarily the right things to fill the void with. And by trial and error, I've come to that conclusion. But throughout that, I had a hard time anchoring myself, grounding myself, should I say, and maintaining my spiritual center. In fact, I went the opposite way, where nutritionally speaking, while I was in Houston, I was like eating things that I would never normally eat, mostly because I didn't have a lot of time or a lot of choice. It's Texas after all. And I was eating like cheeseburgers and French fries, and I drank wine when I don't normally drink. So yeah, not grounded at all, and there were many reasons for that, and stress and being unanchored can do that, can bring back the things that don't serve us, so that we can have the experience to remind ourselves of that, certainly during a Mercury retrograde, right? So there you have it. So the High Priestess is there to remind us that our intuition is at its peak, at this time, and will only increase because we're only getting better as we move forward in our awakening, right? But this is peak, so it's also time for us to really understand how our intuition serves us and serves our higher purpose, right? And of course, where we're coming out of, and essentially also what we've had to let go of through that eclipse energy, and you may have felt very solidified in this kind of a state of mind. We have the Nine of Swords. And of course, what I like about this is in this tarot of opposition, as I said earlier about why I wanted to choose it, not necessarily the artwork itself, but it allows us to tap into this understanding that in the case of the upright Nine of Swords, this person is tapping into their intuition to receive the thoughts and therefore align themselves with their higher self in terms of how they interpret these superfluous thoughts, and maybe even turns them into something useful. You know, she has a sword in front of her, at her disposal, really, to eliminate all of these. And if we were to look at the reverse, you know, this is the state of mind that none of us wants to be in, right? And as we can see, this sword isn't particularly sharp because it hasn't been used to eliminate these things, and these thoughts have just caused her deterioration, and she's not able to tap into her intuition. Instead, she is consumed by her thoughts. So I would say, given that this is the first time I'm using this deck on camera, and we always go with intuitive messages, that duality is very key in the High Priestess and in this rebirth and in what we let go of with that full moon eclipse and what we're now moving into with the new moon energy. So think about that. How do we just got that as a message in our transits card. How do we perceive our thoughts and our experiences? And do we understand that we have the power to really direct how we react and respond to what happens around us? And that's what really makes us the architect of our dreams and our subsequent building from the dream into reality, right? You know, our past, we have this Three of Wands energy. Now, the Three of Wands energy here shows a sense of we spend a lot of time in an anticipation energy, really placing our expectations and our thoughts outside of ourselves, and therefore finding ourselves quite disempowered as a result of that. Again, Neptunian energy can really put us in the position where when we're in this place of waiting, that we can have almost like more like a hangman experience where we have the opportunity to observe our thoughts, our dreams, and therefore have a more intentional reaping of what we've sown, right? So it's not a bad thing. It's simply that perhaps we've been in an incubation period prior to this rebirth that we're looking at now. So that's interesting to think about. I'm going to have to really think about that because I resonate with it, but I'm also realizing that I haven't spent a lot of conscious energy on noticing that, if that makes sense. This is our environment. We have the King of Cups. Now, the King of Cups in our environment is really about honoring the value of the knowledge of our emotions, and therefore staying in alignment with that knowledge, and probably in correlation with the High Priestess, because I'm sort of reading these cards in a new way right now, where I relate everything back to the underlying energy of the High Priestess. It's a reminder that when we are in when we understand that we have mastery of our emotions, we naturally bring ourselves back to the esoteric, the spiritual, the what keeps us spiritually centered. We live a life that revolves around that. We integrate that. If we don't, we fall into self-obsession, being emotionally miserly, disconnected, and as you can see in this, that becomes colorless, it becomes mean-spirited, it becomes defensive, it becomes lacking in life force, right? So another reminder of how that affects our environment, how that creates the experience of our environment. And of course we want to be in the position where we're having we want our environment to reflect back to us the emotional maturity that we carry within, right? If we find ourselves in the position where we're at loggerheads with anybody in our environment because we are finding them to be immature, because we are finding them to be lacking in something, really that's just because that's what we're seeking out as a mirror of our own shortcomings. And it's hard for us to accept that, I understand. So really hard to walk around taking responsibility for everybody else's actions. But truthfully, if it's because somebody's truly problematic, then you just don't, you cut off the oxygen supply. You don't make space for that. So if you're making space for it, it's because there's something that you're getting out of that, right? So that's also something that we need to remind ourselves of. Here in our present, like in terms of where we stand at this very moment in time, again, could not be better. We have the Fool. So that new moon energy is here, and I think I will just take one clarifier on that if Spirit will allow for that. No, I'll take that one because it flipped and went. We have the Two of Cups. Now again, the Two of Cups depicted here as a romantic union, but of course this is about what we just talked about, the mirror, right? It's finding that beauty in the mirror. It's finding, obviously that's in terms of our own relationship to ourselves, but also in terms of our relationship to others, and finding that commonality, finding that synergistic essence from Spirit in how we perceive other people around us, rather than being in the position where we close ourselves down. I mean, for example, there's a cute guy in my building who I keep bumping into in the laundry room, believe it or not, and I actually terrified him earlier because I went down there and he was in there, and I was like, oh God, his back is turned and he's doing his thing, and I can tell he's totally in his zone. And if I'm trying to think, I'll just speak really loud so that he doesn't freak out because he doesn't know that there's somebody else in the laundry room. And trust me, this building, the laundry room is in the basement and it's kind of weird down there. So I went to just be like, don't freak out, like, and he literally, like, jumped through the roof and was like, ah, like that, and, like, he made a really weird high-pitched noise, and whenever it was kind of funny. And but, like, the terror was, like, real. It was, like, really bizarre. But anyway, I don't know, he started telling me about how, he went to a nude pool party yesterday, and immediately, my barriers and defense mechanisms went up, where I'm just like, oh, who is this person? Like, what a whore, basically was what went through my mind. And, because I'm really, I can be guilty of black and white thinking, let's put it that way. And by the end of the conversation, he was very engaged and he seems like a very nice person, you know, I could hear the sass coming out in me. And then when he was leaving, I was like, well, enjoy your hedonistic experiences. Not exactly the most inviting way to approach people, right? So there's a perfect example of what I was just trying to describe. And probably the reason why I've been single for a really long time, right? I mean, among many others. I mean, you know, I'm not painting myself the victim on that level. It's been a very conscious choice. But you see, the defense mechanism is still there, and there's all kinds of boundaries, and that's where we can hinder the flow of our emotional mastery. So we jump from that emotional mastery through our spirituality and being in that. Because when we do meditate and we practice what we are meant to be practicing as spiritually driven people, we can be open, right? What is kind of working against us, that's our problem zone in this reading. I mean, I totally did this intuitively, so bear with me. But we have the Hanged Man in reverse. Now, it's the only card that insisted on flipping, so I'm taking it in the reverse. And in this particular depiction, what we have is where the upright Hanged Man is voluntarily in this position of suspension in order to contemplate and receive the light, receive the intuitive messages. In the reverse, this person is basically hung upside down in imprisonment and in despair and cannot receive anything and has no light coming in whatsoever. So they're stuck. So our thoughts, probably if we get stuck in that Three of Wands, the anticipation and expectation energy, that if it's not imbued with the spiritual energy of the High Priestess, if we immediately then go back to that Nine of Swords, worry, angst energy, right? And that in turn creates a in-between phase of terror, of disconnection, rather than one filled with opportunity for growth and full of hope and expansion and expansiveness, should I say, you know? So, and we got the clarifiers clarified by the Devil. So again, doesn't matter if it's upright or not. In this case, the Devil is shown in the upright as being a spiritually receiving energy rather than an hedonistic, demonic, closed off, self-perpetuating energy. So maybe there is something to that once again to tap into, because even in the Devil card, if we imbue it with High Priestess energy, then we move into the white witchcraft kind of realm, if you see what I mean. We have Page of Pentacles. Page of Pentacles indicating that in this context, there's an opportunity for building something new in our actual 3D realm, in our lives, our identity, our experience of the 3D world. And it's there for us. As you can see, in this case, the student contemplates the opportunity, and in the reverse, the student squanders it and spends too much time looking at the cover of the book rather than reading the book, if that makes sense. Followed by the Tower. So again, to read these all together, it is precisely a fear-based card, and it basically puts us in the position where we aren't receiving the lesson, because instead we are caught up in analysis paralysis, and we're not therefore, again, the key to it is being in that high priestess spiritual energy, so that we focus our energy away from stagnation, from self-indulgence that gets in our way and makes us fail to break beyond the fog of a self-fulfilling prophecy of feeling stuck and disconnected from opportunities that are clearly there. And the Tower energy is there, really indicating that probably in some shape or form in your life there has been some form of a Tower moment, a tearing down, a sudden tearing down of something that was impeding your progress. That's how I'm reading this. This is not something on the horizon. This is something that has happened. And we might still be in the place where that Tower has left us feeling shaken and not confident and not receiving the gift of the lesson and the opportunity to come. So if that's the case for you, I can certainly relate to that myself, and I can think of other people in my life where that could be, quite accurately depicting the way that they too are experiencing this shift, that, there's a gift in whatever that Tower has been, but because it's anchored a little bit in fear and fear of being held back, fear of being unable to regain a life force in some shape or form. We just have to be assured that that's not the case. And again, the only way to do that is through tapping into that high priestess energy. So we meditate our way through those false narratives that we hold on to, like subconsciously, that put us back into a Nine of Swords energy where we worry, and then we see the dark side of things. As we always know, where there is darkness, there is light, and vice versa. So it really does come down to what we choose to focus on, particularly in moments of destabilization, which we can choose to look at as an opportunity for the pathway to open up to newness, which means untapped potentiality, which is always positive. Or we can look at it as being, oh, I'm always going to be in this. I'm just disconnected from my life force, like that hanged man in reverse, Anyway, our outcome, beautiful. We had the Two of Wands and the Ace of Cups. Now, what I love about the Two of Wands depiction here is that this is a person who's choosing a challenge. So traditionally, the Two of Wands is a choice, a decision, an informed decision. And in this case, it's shown as somebody who has the strength to carry themselves into the right decision for them. And we get the hand of the King of Cups as an Ace of Cups here, but this is an understanding that our cup is full. So this is ultimately what we carry with us in this new endeavor, whatever it may be. I have no idea. I'm not going to take clarifiers on it, because we simply all have too different a life from one another to be able to need clarifiers. I think that the Two of Wands and Ace of Cups is pretty self-explanatory, but they're both cards that indicate a strong period of inspiration on the horizon through this new moon energy, and certainly letting go of the fear and the worry and the self-destructiveness and the lack of ability to see our cup as half full, if it is only half full, and instead seeing it as half empty, and therefore erring more on the side of self-annihilation and nihilism in general, perhaps even, which is the opposite of the high spirit, the high priestess energy, right? So again, if we see that tower as divine intervention, then we see it as something to receive. So we're going to start on that note to be able to understand where that comes from with our first Osho card, Conditioning, number 15. This card recalls an old Zen story about a lion who was brought up by the sheep and who thought he was a sheep until an old lion captured him and took him to a pond where he showed him his own reflection. Many of us are like this lion. The image we have of ourselves comes not from our own direct experience, but from the opinions of others. A personality imposed from the outside replaces the individuality that could have grown from within. We become just another sheep in the herd, unable to move freely and unconscious of our own true identity. It's time to take a look at your own reflection in the pond and make a move to break out of whatever you have been conditioned by others to believe about yourself. Dance, run, jog, do gibberish, whatever is needed to wake up the sleeping lion within. Unless you drop your personality, you will not be able to find your individuality. Individuality is given by existence. Personality is imposed by society. Personality is social convenience. So society cannot tolerate individuality because individuality will not follow like a sheep. Individuality has the quality of the lion. The lion moves alone. The sheep are always in the crowd, hoping that being in the crowd will feel cozy. Being in the crowd, one feels more protected, secure. If somebody attacks, there is every possibility in a crowd to save yourself, but alone, only the lions move alone. And every one of you is born a lion. But the society goes on conditioning you, programming your mind as a sheep. It gives you a personality, a cozy personality, nice, very convenient, and very obedient. Society wants slaves, not people who are absolutely dedicated to freedom. Society wants slaves because all the vested interests want obedience. Well, of course, we could not live in more attuned times to that for us to take a good hard look at how we interact in that way. But again, it is through the high priestess energy of spirituality and spiritually grounding ourselves that we find ourselves able to tap into our individuality freely without it being egoically driven, right? So think about that too. Then we have the Knight of Pentacles, which is nice because I think that's a graduation point from that Page of Pentacles with the Tower and the Devil and the Hanged Man in reverse. So in this case, the Knight of Pentacles represents slowing down. That's the name of the card. And basically, I would say that this is the Saturn retrograde in representation here. So apply this now with hindsight to what we were talking about earlier about Saturn in Aquarius and how this retrograde could manifest for us. It isn't, I mean, the Knight of Pentacles is the slowest moving knight, but it is still a knight of moving forward. It's still an action card, but it's an action card with deliberation, with intent, with careful analysis. And so let's read the card. The Knight of Rainbows is a reminder that just like this tortoise, sorry, there is a tortoise in the card, just in case you didn't see that before. Just like this tortoise, we carry our home with us wherever we go. There is no need to hurry, no need to seek shelter elsewhere. Even as we move into the depths of the emotional waters, we can remain self-contained and free from attachments. It is a time when you are ready to let go of any expectations you have had about yourself or other people, and to take responsibility for any illusions you might have been carrying. There is no need to do anything but rest in the fullness of who you are right now. If desires and hopes and dreams are fading away, so much the better. Their disappearance is making space for a new quality of stillness and acceptance of what is, and you are able to welcome this development in a way that you have never been able to before. Savor this quality of slowing down, of coming to rest, and recognizing that you are already at home. And that may be it, that, part of what we learn spiritually, and certainly it's been very much part of the lesson of this eclipse, is that the first place to start with being happy is to be happy with the things that we already have, right? And I think that taps again into, in reading that, you can find aspects of the High Priestess energy once again, which is that if we anchor ourselves, and when I say anchor, I don't mean that in a negative, stuck way. I mean, it's a choice of anchoring, In our spirituality, we find that slowness that is really the essence of Zen, right? Meditation is a kind of medicine. Its use is only for the time being. Once you have learned the quality, then need not do any particular... No, sorry, I'm speaking like I'm like Confucius. Then you need not do any particular meditation. Then the meditation has to spread all over your life. Walking is Zen. Sitting is Zen. Then what will be the quality? Watchfully alert, joyously, unmotivated, centered, loving, flowing, one walks. And the walking is sauntering, loving, alert, watchful, one sits unmotivated, not sitting for anything in particular, just enjoying how beautiful just sitting doing nothing is, how relaxing and how restful. And I will share how triggered I am by the word unmotivating. For me, I'm reading that as a negative immediately. The 2 times that I just read that word, I was like, how does this fit in? Is this meant to be some broad spectrum approach of yin and yang throughout? No, it's the same thing. Basically, it's telling us that we can't find the essence if we're motivated, because motivation takes us out of the moment, right? I'm sure for you, you probably thought it was really obvious, but it says a lot about me that's kind of an area that I obviously need to work on, right? After a long walk, you sit under a tree and the breeze comes and cools you. Each moment one has to be at ease with oneself, not trying to improve, not cultivating anything, not practicing anything. Walking is Zen, sitting is Zen, talking or silent, moving, unmoving. The essence is at ease. The essence is at ease. That is the key word. The essence is at ease. That is the key statement. Do whatsoever you are doing, but at the deepest core, remain at ease, cool, calm, and centered. And that is very apt for me, because I can tell you that my fear that drives me forward as I'm thinking about taking another professional opportunity is that I'm not going to be able to be at ease, and I have to fake being at ease when I move into these places. There's the facade of self-confidence. There's the, I don't want to appear like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want, all of the worth that I could possibly have for all of the 46 years of life experience that I've had, and the 20 odd years of professional experience that I've had, that those mean nothing in that moment, because I'm willing to throw them all away in order to pretend to be something, because I cannot be at ease. So, and why? Because I'm afraid of failure, and I'm afraid of being rejected. Being at ease means that you accept those things. If that's the outcome, then that is what is meant to be, right? Oh, so wise. Okay. Finally, this is the last of our Asha Zen cards, and then it shall be done. So hopefully you will have enjoyed this time together. It did feel quite peaceful, I have to say. 4 of Wands, 4 of Fire, participation. Each figure in this mandala holds the right hand up in an attitude of receiving and the left hand down in an attitude of giving. And if you can see, that's actually what I'm doing right now. I wasn't even realizing. The whole circle creates a tremendous energy field that takes on the shape of the double dorja. I don't know how you pronounce that. The Tibetan symbol for the thunderbolt. The mandala has a quality like that of the energy field that forms around a Buddha, where all the individuals taking part in the circle make a unique contribution to create a unified and vital whole. It is like a flower whose wholeness is even more beautiful than the sum of its parts, at the same time enhancing the beauty of each individual petal. You have an opportunity to participate with others now, to make your contribution to creating something greater and more beautiful than each of you could manage alone. Your participation will not only nourish you, but will also contribute something precious to the whole. So maybe this new moon energy is about telling us that it's time to stop being in our separateness, that our separateness has served its purpose. And again, Saturn going retrograde in Aquarius really might indicate that there's a bit of a juggle there of how we see ourselves in interaction with the collective, right? And other people and the otherness. And of course, Gemini, as we talked about going into that second decan, but Gemini in general is really about sociability, curiosity, and maybe because we've spent so much time in that inner sanctum chrysalis, the new moon is finally, the blood moon eclipse allowed us to eliminate what it is that keeps us in our separateness, perhaps our untrustingness and our separation, it's not a disconnection from others, but it's just a voluntary focus on our own inner process that is sort of, we're graduating beyond now into a place of participation. Have you ever seen night going? Very few people ever become aware of things which are happening every day. Have you ever seen the evening coming, the midnight and its song, the sunrise and its beauty? We are behaving almost like blind people. In such a beautiful world, we are living in small ponds of our own misery. It is familiar, so even if somebody wants to pull you out, you struggle. You don't want to be pulled out of your misery, of your suffering. Otherwise, there is so much joy all around. You have to just be aware of it and become a participant, not a spectator. Philosophy is speculation. Zen is participation. Participate in the night leaving. Participate in the evening coming. Participate in the stars and participate in the clouds. Make participation your lifestyle, and the whole existence becomes such a joy, such an ecstasy. You could not have dreamed of a better universe. A little Neptunian riddle for us at the very end there. Thank you, Asha. Okay, that is what I have for you. I hope that you found your center and your zen in all of this, because I really do feel there's a real focus on that, but also the idea of reconnecting or participating with our outside world, but in this newness is it feels soothing as opposed to alarming. So that's it. I send you many blessings of your choice, and I offer you much love, and I look forward to seeing you again when we're integrating all of this into the new emotional realm of Cancer season when that comes upon us. So I'll see you very soon. In the meantime, namaste.